What's up, everybody? Isaac here, Civil Engineering Academy. Excited to be with you on another podcast episode. Appreciate you sharing this with a friend, leaving comments, leaving reviews, all that good stuff that helps the old machine move us forward. Appreciate you doing that. We're excited. I'm excited about this episode. If you remember in the past, if you are a longtime listener, I brought on a fellow named Brenton who is with Engineers in Action, and he recommended that I talk to another coworker named Brittany Margritz, and I bring her on to talk about what Engineers in Action is up to. I wanted to have them come back on, see what they're up to these days. Brittany is currently the program manager over there, maybe moving up in the world in the organization, but I wanted to bring her on and talk about the latest and greatest with projects that they're doing, which are to build bridges in other countries, and see what they're up to, how you as an engineer can volunteer some of your time to maybe build a bridge in another country and spend some time in another country to do that, which sounds like an exciting opportunity for you if that's something that you are interested in doing. And don't feel like you have to be a superior engineer, even feel like you know how to do everything. They teach you what you need to know. They teach you the culture, the customs, everything you need to know to be fully prepared to get out there and be a good engineer and help someone in another country. So without further ado, let's bring on Brittany, talk about her experience with Engineers in Action and all of her good stories. If you're interested, though, in passing your FE or PE, make sure you check us out at civilengineeringacademy.com. We have all the good stuff there, and we will be updating all of our stuff to meet the new specifications, but you got to give us a little bit of time because it's a huge ship to move, but we'll get there, I promise you. Anyway, without further ado, let me bring Brittany on right after this. All right. We are rocking and rolling. Brittany, thank you for joining me today on the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm excited to connect with you. I know I've connected with a coworker in the past, Brenton, about what you guys are up to, but I'm excited to hear more from you. He recommended we chatted with you. So I always start these, though, talking about your background. How in the world did you find yourself not only in the world of civil engineering, but how did you find yourself doing what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine a lot of engineers go into engineering because they just liked their math and science classes the best in high school, and it seems like the obvious choice for college, which was kind of how it worked for me. But I originally went into chemical engineering, and then I got to college and I went to the University of Notre Dame, and I started doing chem, and I realized that I hated it. And I very conveniently also realized that one of the other things I was really interested in was doing hands-on work, I think, really in either development or kind of disaster relief management. I think those are kind of areas that I'd heard about and I was interested in. And somebody pointed out to me that civil engineering was probably a better fit for that than chemical engineering. And so I switched and I never really looked back. It was just a good fit for me. I really loved the courses. I had some friends that were in it, so I kind of made that switch. And I also...
Where are you at this stage of life?
So right now I'm in the process of moving to Denver, Colorado. I went and graduated from the University of Notre Dame in 2019. And then I've been living abroad working with our organization since then.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, it's okay. I happen to be in Tampa, Florida right now, so I'm a bit all over the place. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it. And I really loved it. And I actually ended up working with the organization that I now work for. I volunteered for as a student when I was in college. And so that's how I got involved in this particular line of work. And also one of the things that really drove me to choose civil engineering, because it really matched up with the work that we were doing that I wanted to be a part of when I was a college student.
So was it a conference or something? How did you first hear about joining the program?
So the cool thing about Engineers in Action is that we work with university students, specifically engineering students in the United States, as well as Canada and the United Kingdom. And we work with those students to partner on our bridge building projects. So they're involved throughout the entire project process. And they're really one of our core stakeholders because we take the students and we partner them with our partnering communities in our program countries. And we kind of walk them through the design process and the construction planning and all of that. And then they actually travel for 6 to 8 weeks to participate on the project. So when I was a freshman at Notre Dame, I heard about the project. They were building a bridge at the time in Nicaragua. And I said, wow, that sounds really cool. What can I do to be a part of that? And so I was involved all 4 years when I was at college through that process.
Wow, that's awesome. I just remember when I was going to college, I never heard about Engineers in Action. I don't know if their outreach didn't reach that far. Are there certain schools they go to? Like, how do engineers even hear about this? Is it certain universities? Is it widespread? Is it just online, or how does that all work?
Yeah, I think it started a lot smaller than we are now. Now I think we probably partner with, I think, 30 universities annually, but not too long ago, we were much smaller than that. And so it really started with one university chapter at the University of Iowa with one student who was really interested. She found out about a similar organization to ours that was doing this work. And she said, wow, I would love to be involved with that. And so she reached out to them at the time and kind of pitched the idea of working with university students. Her name was Avery Bang. She created an organization called Bridges to Prosperity, which we used to be a part of. So she really created the first university program. And from there, it kind of spread word of mouth. Like students who were in engineering and wanted to have an impact would somehow Google this thing and somehow find out about this very small organization that we were at the time, and then kind of start their own chapters. And it was very student-led. It was very grassroots. You just had some people that were really passionate and put a lot of work into it. And I was very lucky by the time I joined as a student at Notre Dame. I think they'd been building for 8 or so years by then. And so they had a very established process and stuff like that. But we do outreach now. We get a lot of inquiries from students who hear about it. Maybe they have a friend that goes to another university that's doing it. They see us on social media and they talk to us about starting a chapter. We also work a lot more with industry professionals now, but it really started with the student programs. But it was all pretty much word of mouth and kind of just grew slowly over time.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're in school, you actively work on a project, and that's how you got involved in Engineers in Action.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I applied.
Where was your first project? Where was that at?
My first project that I traveled on was in Bolivia, in the Altiplano and the Highlands. And it was 100 meters, which is about 300 feet, over this huge rock gorge, kind of in the middle of nowhere. But I had been involved for previous years before that. I just hadn't traveled before then. So I was involved for about 3 years when I was in college. And then that was the first project that I traveled to and had built. And we were there for about 11 weeks building that project. And after that, I was like, this is it for me. I was already kind of hooked by then.
That's awesome. So when students hear about this, is it part of the curriculum? Is it like a senior design project that they can apply to that class, or is it stuff they do outside of the normal schoolwork?
It's really dependent on the university that you go to, because each university is so unique. Each chapter has its own kind of system. So we have some clubs, some student chapters that are run like a club. It's entirely extracurricular. The students just do it in their free time. They do all their own fundraising and things like that. And we have a lot of chapters that operate like that. And then we have chapters like the one that I went to at Notre Dame, one that we have at Cornell, and they get, like you said, senior design credit. So Brenton's really been, my coworker that you spoke with previously, he really championed kind of our new online educational platforms a couple of years back, which really allowed us to reach more students with our design and construction teaching. And so now we can market that as a capstone, and then students can actually get credit for it at certain universities, and they can get either design credits or, like when I was a student, I got, I think, like engineering electives for it. So it's really dependent on what the university allows, but we support them through that because we have, ABET accreditation, and we have the whole online educational platform, which really teaches students how to design a build from start to finish for one of our bridges.
And I know I kind of jumped into Engineers in Action already, but maybe describe for us what your particular role is for the organization.
Yeah. So, we kind of dived into it, but like you're saying, so like I said, EIA works with students, and we also work with industry professionals and our local stakeholders to build pedestrian footbridges in rural communities. So I started out as a student, and I worked in Bolivia. And then when I graduated, I wanted to continue to do this work. And so I applied and became an intern for our organization. So Engineers in Action kind of has a year-long field internship, and I applied for that. And I was sure they were going to send me to Bolivia. I spoke Spanish. I had worked there, and they said, "Do you want to go to Eswatini?" which is a very small country in Southern Africa that I personally had not really heard of at the time. And I said, "Sure, why not?" And I've been there ever since 2019. So I was working there for the past 4 to 5 years. I kind of started out as an intern, and then I transitioned into my role as the Eswatini Bridge Program Manager, which is what I was doing for the past couple of years. Yeah.
So help me connect the dots here. How do you, as an organization, get into Africa or any other individual country there and work with the local leaders to develop a project?
So that's one of my favorite things about the work that we do at EIA is that we have a very concrete model of having to have that local partnership. So we actually won't work in a country unless we know that we can partner at the government level, whether it's local government or as it is with our Eswatini program, we're actually partnered at the national government level. And we really think that that's a cornerstone of what makes us so successful, because not only do the local experts have the expertise in how to do projects, the regulations, the processing and all of that stuff, they also have all the information on how to do it well, how to be a part of the culture, how to use the existing structures to be really successful. And so that's always been part of our mandate, is that they're required to partner in some way. So they have a financial contribution in terms of the money that they provide for bridge materials. And then the community has a labor component. So a lot of our bridges are kind of unskilled labor. So anybody in a local community with the proper oversight can come and participate in that labor. And that's a core part of it too. So it's kind of that partnership. So we go to countries and meet with people. It's very dependent on which country you're looking at, how the partnership came to be. But you'll find, like in Bolivia, we're partnered with the local municipalities at the provincial level. And then in Eswatini, we're partnered with the local government.
Wow, that's awesome. And are you primarily the go-to resource to go establish that relationship, or do you have other team members that fly out there and set that up?
So when I joined the team, the Eswatini program already existed. So it was actually founded in 2017 by a group of university students from the University of Colorado Boulder, which is kind of a crazy story. But they had gone out because we were trying to do expansion, and they did a lot of work on assessment, seeing if there were feasible projects, seeing if there were local partners who were willing to partner. And they very quickly found a very large national organization that was already doing rural development work. And they said, "Hey, this is what we have. We have this technology. It's cheaper. It's faster to build. It lasts longer. We would love to work and train your engineers to build it." And that organization said, "Absolutely. Like, when can you start?" And they built the first project in 2017, and then they started slowly scaling. So by the time I got there, they were building 2 to 3 projects a year. And we've kind of grown the program ever since. So I found the program already established. It was in about 2017 when we started some of those country programs. And then in the future, when we do expansion, I think it'll look like, kind of doing an assessment of where we think a lot of need is and making sure that need will last for a long time. And then sending out people to meet with local partners and see if they were interested in building programs with us.
Oh, that's awesome. So
yeah.
I wanted to ask, you mentioned that a lot of these projects you team up for funding to do the project. Is Engineers in Action funded as an organization in a different way as well? Is it a charitable contribution that's given? Is that done by companies or corporations, or how is that all working?
So we get our funding kind of from a variety of sources, but I would say the bulk of it comes from people who participate in our project. So students help us to fundraise for the cost of a project. So when the students participate on a project, they help to fundraise for the things that go into hosting a project. Our portion of the materials, things like staff time, resources for assessing sites, and all of those things, tools and equipment and whatnot. And the same is true when we partner with our industry program team. So we've started building out and partnering with engineering companies who can send their employees to partner with us and build on a project. And they also help to kind of donate to Engineers in Action to make the projects possible. And then we get, obviously, some of our donations, some of our funding is just from charitable donations, people within our network, and some is from grants and foundations. But the bulk of it is from people who help us to co-fundraise for the project costs.
Okay, that makes sense. What's some of the biggest challenges you're facing with engineers in action?
Obviously, there's always a lot of what's that?
Or opportunities, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's always challenges. It's challenges all the way through. It's just funny to me. It's like any engineering project. The thing that you spend the most time is solving problems, right? And those are the things that you remember. Obviously, it's difficult enough to build a bridge, in a country with unlimited resources and easy access in which you speak the language. And then you kind of multiply that into, how do you do that in a different culture, in a resource-constrained environment, and under a different budget, and all of those things are difficult. But I think for me, the thing that's always stuck out, like those things kind of, you get used to them, you get used to learning how to problem solve. For me, it's how we can most authentically make every part of our stakeholder engagement really authentic and empowering for everyone. How do you bring a group of volunteers from America who've never been to Eswatini before and integrate them in such a way that they can work side by side with people and not, disempower local experts? How do you teach them in such a way that they can learn and grow, and also build up our local stakeholders and make that work really sustainable? And to me, that's the hardest thing to do. But it's also really beautiful when it works out really well. And I think that's something that we really care about at EIA, and one of the reasons that I really love the work that we do. But it's definitely challenging, to say the least.
I bet. One of the things I'm seeing that's really awesome is, you're helping to facilitate this whole thing. What typically has been your experience with the makeup of engineers in general? Is it typically, are you seeing more female engineers joining this, more male engineers joining this? How do we inspire more female engineers in this industry to do this? But you're a leader in this organization, and I think that's awesome. So I'm just curious if you have any wisdom or wise words that you would share to help inspire others to become engineers if they're maybe sitting on the fence about it, and maybe what your experience was like going through all that.
Yeah, I think fundamentally a lot of people go into engineering because they want to work on things that people are going to use. Like no matter what kind of engineering you do, you're really working in the built environment with things that people use every day, from roadways to water. And I think that a lot of people go into that with this desire to help people, and then they want really concrete ways to do it. And I hear that all the time from people who come and volunteer with us, that they went into engineering to work with people and to make their lives better, to provide them access and stuff like that. And it's actually really hard to find opportunities to do that. So they kind of get excited when they have this chance. And as for the makeup of our organization, I think we're really lucky because we work with a lot of universities. And I think at that age, people are so excited to try new things and go way outside of their comfort zone. And we get a lot of mix of people. I think we have, more females than you would expect, just given the percentage of women that work in the engineering labor force. I think because we have students and because we're trending towards better inclusivity in that way, we get a lot more of them, which is really exciting to see because it's clearly like such an empowering experience for them. We had a team this year in Eswatini from the universities Cornell and Rutgers, and there were 13 people on the team and 12 of them are women. And it was just amazing to see it. And they were so proud of it and they worked so well together. And I loved seeing it as a woman in the field, just to be a part of that was really, really incredible.
That is incredible. Maybe for those that don't know, it sounds like, you're training these group of students when they fly out to a new country. Are you teaching them like the customs of the area as they enter into that world? How are you preparing students to experience what they're going to?
Yeah, that's a fundamental part of what we do. And one of the reasons why I like the work that we do is that we kind of have this mandatory education before students can travel. So they can't just show up on a project not having prepared at all. Not only did they go through quite an intensive engineering process of learning the design, doing the bridge design, learning how to do construction, learning about OSHA safety, like that whole process takes them an entire year before they're even allowed to travel on one of our projects. And they do all of that concurrently with their coursework. But then on top of that, we have other courses for them as well, because the students have different roles on the projects. We teach some of them about project management. We teach some of them about safety management. And one of the things that we require is that the students also go through a cross-cultural competency course, because that's the hardest thing for them, because they don't have that experience. They never could. They don't live in that culture. They've never been to that country. So we take the experience that we've gained as in-country staff, having lived there, for 5 years as people who are from outside that culture. And we take the experience of our local staff who are full-time employees who are from those countries. And we offer it to the students in such a way as to teach them how they can come and participate in this culture in a way that's healthy and safe and respectful. And I think it's so important for them because it really opens their minds to a lot of things that they've never consciously thought about before. And it's also very applicable to kind of every realm of your life. Even if you're not working in a different country, those skills are really important, even when you just go off to work in a civil engineering firm, for example.
I totally agree. I did, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I did a humanitarian trip in Kenya with a group called Choice Humanitarian, and they had an in-country team that could help. But even before we even left, it was, learning the culture and customs of that area to be respectful and make sure you know what you're getting into. So it's good to hear that everyone seems to be doing that to make sure students know what they're getting into.
We push it a lot, especially me. I always try and make our students learn Siswati, the local language, before they come. And they come to me and they're like, this is really hard. I'm like, of course it is. It's supposed to be hard, but that's the fun part, I think it just really changes the experience. Like as much as you come in, you get out.
Yeah, and I remember when I was there, I was picking up Swahili over there in Kenya, so it was good. And I'd come home and try to speak it. Anyway, it was good. Well, This is awesome. Engineers in Action sounds like an awesome organization. I'm curious, what are some of the big goals, I guess, for the year that you may have there at Engineers in Action?
We've got a lot happening. We're always trying to grow sustainably, making sure that, the work that we're doing is safe in the countries that we're doing it in, and that if we learned how to build something new, our local engineers know how to build it and maintain it. So we kind of grow gradually. But last year, for example, we opened up and built our first suspension bridge. So in the past, we've always built cable stay suspended bridges, which hang kind of from rock abutment tiers on the sides. They kind of hang down. And they're really good for gorge-like topography. But we built our first suspension bridge last year, which allows us to build more in floodplains, which is really necessary, especially in Eswatini, because there's a lot of floodplain areas where we weren't able to build before. So we kind of opened up a lot of that. So we're still trying to grow that program. We're trying to build more of those bridges, teach the local staff more about the design of them and the construction of them, and then bring it to our other program countries as well. So that's a big thing that we're working on. And then we're also working on integrating our water sanitation hygiene projects into some of the countries where we haven't done that work before. So I work for the bridge program at Engineers in Action, but some of my colleagues in Bolivia and Ecuador build water projects and hygiene projects. So we're actually trying to integrate all of those programs and bring them to Eswatini, for example, where in the past we've just built bridges. So that's a big thing for us organizationally, is to kind of grow all of that and then continue, obviously, building more bridges and engaging more volunteers, and kind of steadily building up.
Sounds like a growing organization with good goals. When I was in Africa, water was a big deal. I remember we would observe the locals, and they're getting water in water holes that had been drunk out of by elephants. There's elephant dung everywhere, and they drink that stuff. If I drink that stuff, I'd be dead. And I don't know if it's doing them much good, but they seem to be able to drink it. And we had to brainstorm some ways to try to get them cleaner water. But it's good to hear that Engineers in Action is doing that as well. Water is a big deal in Africa.
Well, and one of the cool parts of our model is that we really only build if the community solicits the need for one of our projects. That's part of the government buy-in. They have a process for how communities apply for projects and things of that nature. And we get a lot of requests for water. So we're, seeing those needs and being able to more authentically address them, to be able to provide the technology that they need and not just the technology that we offer is really important to us. We won't build a bridge if that's not what the community really wants. Sometimes we go and we say, hey, we build pedestrian footbridges, and they're like, we want a vehicular bridge, and we won't just go and build there because that's what we want to do. And so opening us up to being able to provide them water, which is something that even the communities where we build bridges in, they're saying, hey, we've already partnered with you. We've built these skills. We've shown you we're committed. We're organized. We want to do this water project at our local school. Can you guys do that with us as well? Being able to continue to partner with them is also a really great opportunity because it just builds their capacity even further and is a much more effective long-term intervention rather than kind of just going in, building a project, and then removing ourselves, which I think we've seen in the past in development work doesn't always lead to the best results for partnering communities.
Right. Well, wow, lots going on with Engineers in Action. Brittany, what would you try to say? I guess most of our audience is probably those preparing for FE, PE kind of stuff that's out there. But for anybody interested in joining Engineers in Action, how would they do that?
There's a lot of ways, honestly, to get involved. I was involved as a student. Obviously, our student programs are one of the biggest parts of what we do, and they're really available to anybody who's interested. Even if there isn't a university chapter at their school, there's ways to get involved, even independently. Our online education courses are open source, and we're always looking to engage with people who want to just be participating in it or maybe who want to start a new chapter. So students can always reach out to us and we can help them. But and that's one of our biggest ways. And then for new grads, we always tell students there's ways to mentor current students or ways to travel on projects. We also have, like I said, our fellowship, which is the internship that I participated in. We always accept applications for that as well. And then for professionals on the PE side of things, we've started building out our programs in that way as well. So we have our industry program, which allows companies to sponsor their employees to participate on projects and travel for 2 weeks on those, because obviously, as you know, professionals have a bit different time availability than students who have a whole summer off. So that program looks a little bit different. And we have our matchmaker program too, which is a new endeavor where we are trying to promote better collaboration between, industry professionals and mentors and our students so that, they can learn from each other, so they can grow, so that those companies can recruit our students, that our students can get experience. And that's something we're really excited about rolling out because across the board, everybody benefits from that. And then it's a really cool collaboration between people who have experience and students who are trying to get into the field for the first time who are looking for mentorship as well.
Wow. It sounds like a good deal all around for anyone in the world of civil engineering. Maybe one last question is I'm curious how you balance all of this. Like, what did you do for fun while you were living in Africa for so many years? But how do you currently balance what you have going on?
Well, Eswatini is, in my opinion, one of the greatest countries in the world. It's beautiful. So if people are ever looking to travel, I recommend it. I had a great time there. There's lots of hiking. It's a beautiful country for nature. I really enjoy all of that. A lot of the people who participate with us tend to be kind of outdoorsy because they got to go sleep in tents for 8 weeks sometimes. It depends. So we get a lot of climber types, a lot of hiker types. So I love all of that. So I do a lot of that on the weekends. I love, I think the thing about balancing your work and your personal life is kind of setting boundaries. So, I would try not to work on Saturdays. I'd be like, this is my day off. If it's not an emergency, if something hasn't fallen down, you can't call me up. But just finding time and things that you really enjoy. And I think I found a lot of things through this work that I enjoyed that I wouldn't have necessarily known. Living abroad really kind of teaches you a lot of things and lets you experience a lot of things that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So it brought me a lot of new hobbies as well. So I really appreciated that. And now as I transition back to the US, I don't know. I've been out of it for a while, so I might struggle a little bit to manage it here. I don't know.
It makes sense. Well, thank you for doing this with me. Is there any last piece of advice or even anything you would like to share with our audience before we wrap this up?
I would just say that if it's something that you're really interested in pursuing and putting time towards, there's always opportunity. And I think that a lot of people kind of think, oh, I don't know enough. I don't have enough experience, especially I felt this way, especially as a young female engineer. I was like, who am I? I just graduated. I don't think that I'm qualified to do that. But if you have the right mentors and the right education platforms, which is something we really try to provide for people, I think you can do it. And I think that people should try it. And even if they fail at something, I think it's worth taking a risk. I appreciate my failures a lot more than I appreciate my successes. So I'm always trying to push people to be a little bit less scared of things that they've never tried before, because it allows you to do a lot more. So we're always open at Engineers in Action for people who want to come and get involved, and we have a number of ways. So I always encourage people to take a little bit of a risk, and it usually pays off.
I love it. And what's the best way for our audience to reach out to you if they had more questions?
I'm available on LinkedIn, so people can reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me or contact me through that. And then EIA obviously has our social media accounts if people are interested in learning more about what we do, seeing some of our ongoing projects we've already started building for the year. Students will start traveling soon, so you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and see kind of some of the work we're doing and how you can get involved.
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure we link all that stuff for everybody to check out. Brittany, thanks for doing this with me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. See ya.
See ya.